What is up, guys? This is Alex from Double Move Sports, back with another perfect off-season video. And if this is the first video in this series you have tuned into, it's been a lot of fun. It's basically where I take a team and I look at their roster, their cap space, their draft assets, their free agents, and I put together what would be the perfect off-season for this specific organization. We've done a lot of them on the channel already. Check those out if you haven't already. Look for your favorite team there. If you don't see it, drop it in the comments below with who you want to see me break down next. Hit that like and subscribe button if you already haven't. But let's go ahead and get into today's topic, the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos are coming off of a very weak season, finishing 5-11 at the bottom of the AFC West. And the big topic for Denver is the quarterback situation. Drew Lock had a rough season. It remains to be seen whether or not he is going to get another shot as the starter in 2021. But fortunately for Denver, they have decent draft assets and they have some cap flexibility as well as they look to rebuild this roster that has some good young pieces in place. Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver, Noah Fant at tight end, amongst some others. And they have $38 million as of now in projected cap space. Plenty of room to make some moves. They just cut AJ Boye at cornerback. That's one veteran they've gone ahead and moved on from. But first, before we jump into some of their free agents and guys on the open market as well, we're going to look at a couple additional cut candidates to free up even more cap space for this Broncos team. And the first name on my list is Jarrell Casey, defensive end. And he's had a great career, but he is getting older. He suffered an injury last season that caused him to miss a lot of time. And for a rebuilding Denver Broncos team, I don't think it makes sense to keep Jarrell Casey on this roster. Cutting him can actually save them $12 million in cap space. So this one is a no-brainer to me. They can get some young developing talent in there that's going to be much more cost-effective and potentially a player that's going to help them in the future when they are going to compete. So Jarrell Casey is the first cut. And the second one on this list hurts a little bit, and I know this is controversial, but it's Von Miller, outside linebacker. And yes, he has been the face of this Denver Broncos defense for years. But if they're going to rebuild, they could really use this cap space that they free up by cutting Von Miller to do a lot of good on this defense, to get some younger pieces in place. Cutting Von Miller would save this team $18 million. And I should say it's not necessarily cutting, it's just not picking up the team option that Denver has. So $18 million by moving on from Von Miller, $12 million by moving on from Jarrell Casey. Combine that with the $38 million they already have, that's $68 million heading into free agency. That is huge, especially compared to where a lot of other teams in the NFL are sitting right now. So yes, they have a lot of guys to re-sign themselves, which we're going to get into, but $68 million in cap space would be a great start to this offseason, moving on from some veterans. Now, next, let's go ahead and get into some of Denver's free agents. And we're not going to touch on every single name. We're going to talk about some of the key contributors here. I'll throw them on the screen, and then we'll go down this list one by one, talking about each and every one of them. You got Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, Elijah Wilkinson, Shelby Harris, DeMar Dotson, AJ Johnson, Jeremiah Atauchu, DeMarcus Walker, Tim Patrick, and Philip Lindsay. So a very long list of contributors on this team that are set to be free agents. We'll start at the top with Justin Simmons, and this one's easy for me. And it's being rumored right now that this is going to happen as well, so I'm going to go ahead and go with it in this scenario. I think they should bring him back regardless, but there are rumors that the franchise tag is going to be used on Simmons again. So we are going to say the Broncos franchise tag star safety Justin Simmons. He's been an awesome leader for this defense. He should be back as a staple of the secondary moving forward. Yes, it's going to cost them a little bit, but with all that cap space, they shouldn't have an issue paying Justin Simmons a decent salary in 2021. So Simmons will be back. But on the flip side, you've got Kareem Jackson. They have a team option on Jackson, but if they're going to bring Simmons back, they should let Jackson go. He's an older safety in the secondary. They can get a younger option to go along with Simmons back there in the secondary in Denver. But going down the list, we'll talk about the two offensive linemen here, Elijah Wilkinson and DeMar Dotson. DeMar Dotson is now 35 years old. He's getting older. I think you let him go and replace him with a cheaper option. Jump back up here to Elijah Wilkinson, bring him back on a small deal, and maybe he can step in and fill that void left by DeMar Dotson on the offensive line. So we'll let Dotson go. We'll bring Wilkinson back on a small deal. Now getting into some more of this defense, you got Shelby Harris at defensive tackle. He had a fantastic 88% Pro Football Focus grade in 2020. He should be brought back as a disruptor on the interior of this defensive line, keep some of these pieces on defense in place, some of the bright spots for Denver. So we'll bring Shelby Harris back. Same goes for A.J. Johnson, inside linebacker, the tackle leader for Denver in 2020, second highest tackle leader on the team in 2019. He should be able to be brought back affordably to keep some of the pieces of this defense together. And same also goes for Atachu, a rotational linebacker who should be back on a small deal as well. So we'll bring back Harris, we'll bring back A.J. Johnson, we'll bring back Atachu. But DeMarcus Walker at defensive end, he's a rotational pass rusher who made some plays last season, but he can be let go as Denver's already bringing back a lot of other pieces in this scenario, some guys that I see as being much more important. So now last two names here. I know, we're talking a lot about these guys, but I want to hit on every single name on this list. You got Tim Patrick and Philip Lindsay. I think Tim Patrick can be back on a small deal. He was a very solid contributor in 2020 at wide receiver. I know you've got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton coming back from injury, KJ Hamler as well. Bring Tim Patrick in for some depth at the position. He served them very, very nicely in 2020, and he could potentially be that number 4 guy in 2021 and beyond. And Philip Lindsay, this might be debatable as well. I know he is a hometown guy, but he's probably going to require a multi-million-dollar contract. You're already paying Melvin Gordon at the running back position. I think you actually let Philip Lindsay go. He's a restricted free agent, so if he does leave, they should receive some sort of compensation for him. So we are going to let Lindsay go in this scenario. So real quickly, we'll recap everything I just talked about. We're bringing back Justin Simmons, Elijah Wilkinson, Shelby Harris, A.J. Johnson, Jeremiah Atachu, and Tim Patrick. And we're letting go of Kareem Jackson, DeMar Dotson, DeMarcus Walker, and Philip Lindsay. Next, we're going to go ahead and move into NFL free agency. And we should still have some cap space to spend here to make up for some of those guys that we lost. First, we're going to look at a pass rusher. It's a deep pass rushing class. Shaq Barrett, Matt Judon, Bud Dupree, J.J. Watt's now a free agent, amongst others. But the guy that really makes sense for the Denver Broncos is Bud Dupree. He's a younger, dynamic pass rusher they could bring in. He is coming off of that ACL injury, so who knows? Maybe they get him at a little bit of a discount. But that's going to replace Von Miller as a pass rusher on this defense. His salary should be lower than the cap number Von Miller was seeing for the past couple of seasons. He's got a couple extra years left in the tank, assuming he recovers from that ACL injury on track and as expected, and he is so far. So I think Bud Dupree makes a lot of sense. Get that dominant pass rusher on the defensive side of the ball and get a little bit younger as well. And the next position I would love to see the Broncos address in free agency is defensive back, specifically the safety spot. We're going to go with Marcus May. And here they get the younger replacement for Kareem Jackson. They get a talented safety to go alongside Justin Simmons in that secondary. And I just think it makes sense to bring in a guy like Marcus May, get younger, make this defense more dynamic, make it more refreshed out on the field as you look to rebuild this organization from top to bottom. Now, last but not least, we are going to talk about the draft. And first, we'll look at the draft capital for the Denver Broncos. They have pick 9 in round 1, pick 40 in round 2, and pick 71 in round 3. They have some picks in rounds 4 through 7 as well, but we're only going to hit on the first 3 rounds here. We really want to look at the big impact players right off the bat. And we start out with pick 9 in round 1, and they could go all sorts of different ways with this pick. Wouldn't mind seeing them actually draft some more defense at this spot, but we're actually going to go with the quarterback. We're going to go with Trey Lance, quarterback out of North Dakota State, if he is available there at number 9. With this being the perfect offseason, we are going to assume that he is, and there are a lot of teams in play for Trey Lance early in the draft. There could also be teams that want to trade up and get him. I've covered some other teams in these perfect offseason videos that actually trade up to get Trey Lance. I think he is a solid quarterback that could develop into a franchise guy. And with this pick for Denver, they get their potential quarterback of the future, a guy that has great size, great arm strength, great athleticism, and honestly, a guy that would be a lot of fun to watch in a quarterback battle with Drew Lock as early as this season. So Trey Lance is the guy here. I don't know. I'm not sold on Drew Lock in Denver. I don't think they are either. So you at least get Trey Lance to see if you can create some competition there in Denver. And either Trey Lance is going to step in and be that guy, or Drew Lock is going to have a fire lit under him and really increase his performance and increase his play. So Trey Lance is the pick in round 1. Moving on to round 2, we're going to go with Tyson Campbell, cornerback out of Georgia. Here's your A.J. Boye replacement. He's a great man-to-man corner. He can play on the outside immediately as he continues to develop in this league. And it's just adding more youth and explosiveness to the defensive side of the ball for the Denver Broncos. Last but not least, for what we're going to cover in this video, we will talk round 3, pick 71, and we're going to go with a running back, the Phillip Lindsay replacement. Yes, Melvin Gordon is there, but they could use someone to complement him, and the player here is Kenneth Gainwell, running back out of Memphis. Melvin Gordon is still going to be the guy, but I think depth at the position can't hurt, and Gainwell can be a great complementary piece to Melvin Gordon in this backfield. He brings big play potential. He brings elite receiving ability. So I think Gainwell could be a nice fit for this Broncos team. So I want to recap everything, starting with the guys that will not be with the Broncos next season. We mentioned they already cut AJ Boye before the recording of this video, so we won't include that here. But in this video, we have them cutting Jarrell Casey and Von Miller, and then in free agency, letting go of Kareem Jackson, DeMar Dotson, DeMarcus Walker, not Tim Patrick, and Phillip Lindsay. So again, that's letting go in free agency of Kareem Jackson, DeMar Dotson, DeMarcus Walker, and Phillip Lindsay. Now we'll talk about the guys we are going to retain for Denver and bring in free agency in the draft. We're going to retain Justin Simmons, Elijah Wilkinson, Shelby Harris, AJ Johnson, Jeremiah Atauchu, Tim Patrick in free agency. As far as the open market goes, guys from other teams, we're going to bring in Bud Dupree at outside linebacker and Marcus May at safety. Then in the draft, we go Trey Lance at quarterback, Tyson Campbell at cornerback, and Kenneth Gainwell at running back. So that does it for this video. I want to know what you think. Drop in the comments below what you liked here, what you would have done differently. Also, I want to see who you want to see me break down next. I'm rolling through these teams. I'm over halfway done. It's been a lot of fun. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. If you got any additional NFL questions, fantasy football questions, dynasty questions, always happy to answer those as well. But again, this is Alex from Double Move Sports, and we'll see you next time.